Australia. For most of us in this class, one of the first things that comes to mind when its name is mentioned is its stunning natural landscape. And despite our different parts of the world, languages, and cultures, we all wanted to go to Australia to experience and learn from its unique environment. From the vibrant rainforests and the Great Barrier Reef in the north, to the expansive deserts of the west, the countless world-class beaches dotted along the coast, and the rugged peaks of Tasmania. Australia's natural landscape is truly as diverse as the people in this class. Being home to 700,000 species, Australia is also one of the most biodiverse countries on Earth. Unfortunately, many of these landscapes and animals are at risk of being lost forever. With a diverse range of both large-scale and personal activities contributing to the demise of these natural landscapes, Australia's environmental issues are multifaceted and very complex.
From 1910 to 2011, Australia has warmed by 0.9 degrees Celsius, which is more than the global average of 0.7 degrees Celsius. More interestingly, however, the east coast of Australia has increased a total of 2 degrees Celsius since 1960. Although this doesn't sound like a large increase, it carries a lot of monumental impacts with it. In 1998, only 42% of corals in the Great Barrier Reef experienced bleaching to some extent, whereas in 2016, 93% of corals experienced some bleaching, with more than 60% of these corals experiencing life-threatening levels of bleaching. With the Great Barrier Reef contributing an estimated $6.4 billion to the Australian economy annually, losing this national icon would be felt by everyone. These increasing temperatures also carry massive consequences for the mainland, with increasing temperatures being the number one cause of both the Big Dry, which was a severe drought lasting from 1990 to 2009, carrying also many economic consequences, and the infamous Black Summer, which was fueled by the warmest and driest year in Australia's history and cost an estimated $110 billion. Clearly, the economic impacts of climate change are enormous for Australia, with the biggest drivers of climate change in Australia being electricity and energy, followed by transportation, agriculture, and other resource-related emitters. We all have a part to play in combating this crisis. On a personal level, the biggest impacts we can make are being mindful of our resource consumption, as well as our transportation options and choosing public transport over cars, and also consuming less beef overall. On a larger scale, we can vote for individuals who will implement policies to create positive change and maintain the beautiful landscape of Australia for years to come.
I'm Yannick and I'm going to talk about mining in Australia. The Australian mining industry is very big and important for the economy. 1.2 million people are employed and the industry generates an average of 50 billion Australian dollars annually. The total net worth of resource exports amounts to $160 billion. Australia is one of the world's leading producers and exporters of metals and minerals. This accounts for almost 70% of total export revenue. Therefore, the mining industry is very important for the Australian economy. Open cut mining is a mining method mostly used for extracting coal for export and domestic use. Brown coal is mostly found southern Australia and black coal is mainly in the basins of New South Wales and Queensland. The environmental impact of mining varies based on extraction techniques and mine locations. For coal mining, underground and open cut methods, they have serious environmental consequences. Establishing mining sites involves extensive construction work leading to habitat loss, biodiversity loss, and the reduction and water pollution. This will also further accelerate climate change. In the beginning of 2023, Australia for the first time in history blocked the creation of a coal mine under environmental laws. The government rejected a proposal for a new mine located about 10 kilometers from the Great Barrier Reef. This should strengthen the environmental regulations aimed to protect natural habits by reducing carbon emissions, preserving water, and minimizing economic impact of the mining industry. Now I will continue with the deforestation in Australia, which is another big issue. Australia is a global deforestation hotspot, primarily driven by the beef industry. Between 1972 and 2014, over 7.2 million hectares of primary forest were cleared, which means a 7% reduction from forested land from the 101 million hectares recorded in 1972. An additional 9.2 million hectares of regrowth forest were also cleared during this period. Most deforestation has occurred in Queensland, where 9.2 million hectares of forests were cleared, including 3.6 million hectares of primary deforestation. Deforestation poses a significant threat to Australia's biodiversity. Large-scale agriculture for livestock grazing, cotton growing, mining, and logging for timber, paper, and pulp are major contributors to deforestation. The consequences include increased temperatures and global warming, negative soil erosion by wind and rain, increased flooding, wildlife extinction, and disruption of the water cycle. These are some major issues that come with mining and deforestation.
My name is Stanley. Today I'm talking about environmental ethics. So basically, we'll divide it into two parts. The first part, I will provide an overview of different approaches that have come from Stanford's journals. Typically, the first one is utilitarianism. This theory values actions based on their outcomes. The theory aims to maximize overall well-being. So let us put into environmental ethics context. It considers the impacts of a policy on the health and the happiness of both humans and ecosystems. So the final approach is virtue ethics. Virtue ethics generally promotes the welcome moral characteristics in modern societies, such as compassion and respect for the natures, leading to environmental friendly and responsible behavior. Let's talk about environmental ethics. It's about indigenous rights and government policies. First, the indigenous people's rights was protected by United Nations Declarations of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Article 9 states the indigenous people rights not be subjected or to forced assimilations or destructions of their cultures. It means that the government and international community have the obligation to protect indigenous cultures. Additionally, Section B of the Article 8 says the state should provide effective mechanism to prevent actions aimed on depriving indigenous people of their value, cultures, and their village. It means that the government should put affirmative actions and establish the effective mechanism for prevention, not just observe indigenous people struggles. Let's move on to government policy in Australia. The government policy should address a sequence of measures to combat with climate change and reduce the greenhouse emissions. In Australia, for example, it was connected with indigenous rights, as I say in the international treaties. The Act for 2005, this Act aims to protect Aboriginal peoples, which means indigenous land, and with the cooperations or commercial business, they will have the voice out for the commercial structures. That will truly protect the indigenous right and maximum the participations in formulations and interpretations of the programs and providing them the ethical voice. The voice is very important for indigenous people within Australia. So let's talk about the last things about no leave trade policies. I think this is very simple but important. It is highlight some principle for you. For example, if we go to the field trip to Blue Mountains, it's very highly to compliance with these ethics. For example, if you do the field trip in the Blue Mountains, you should not leave any garbage and to do the minimal impact about what you reserve. So I think the most important things is if to consider about others. And others means that humans, animals, and ecosystems. So that means you should be respectful and responsible for your behaviors.